Hello everyone, welcome back to the Briones Pickleball channel. My name is Jordan Yeager, and today I'm going to be talking about one of the most unique paddles that I have ever played with to date. This paddle was made for a very specific type of player, and that is tennis players. This piqued my interest as I am a former tennis player and was curious to see how it holds up against the other paddles on the market. Let's get into the stats real quick and see what makes this paddle so different. This paddle is literally called the RQT, which is pronounced racket. This paddle got its name rightfully so with a total length of 17 inches, which is the maximum legal length for PPA tournaments or USA pickleball in general. That is a ½ inch longer than the YOLO Perseus and 3/4 inch longer than the 6-0 double black diamond. All this extra length went straight to the handle, which measures at 6.5 inches. And to my knowledge, this paddle has the longest handle on the market. I remember holding it in my hands for the first time and it feeling so weird to actually have more than enough room for my two-handed backhand grip. With this paddle being so long, it only makes sense that the swing weight is somewhat high. I ran my tests multiple times and it came in at 125. This is just low enough to where I can still see a decent amount of people using this paddle. But we also have to remember that this was made for tennis players and they typically have strong forearms and grip. The twist weight came in at 5.11. That's not great, but it's to be expected with how small the paddle face is. It measures 7 inches across. With the added stiffness thermal forming brings to the table, Crush was able to make this paddle come into existence. But that's enough about the specs. Let's talk about how this thing plays. There are a lot of things I really enjoyed about this paddle and a couple things that I wasn't a fan of. First off, I want to talk about the sweet spot size. In its stock form, I'd say that it is very average. If you hit a little bit off the center of the paddle, the ball carried very little energy into that shot. That's when I added my lead tape setup, which is two 5-inch strips of lead tape placed at the 4 and 8 o'clock positions on the paddle. This helped the sweet spot size and stability drastically, as it always does. Once it was added, the sweet spot size and stability were solid and had no complaints. The feel of this paddle is one of the main things that stood out to me. It was so plush. Kind of reminds me of the Vatic Prism Flash, if any of you have used that paddle. This paddle is flirting between the lines of a more powerful control paddle and a very soft all-court paddle. With the lead tape setup, every ball off this paddle feels like you're hitting a pillow. It's very satisfying to play with. This plush feel makes hitting dinks, resets, and third shot drops not a problem at all. Speaking of playing in the kitchen, hitting two-handed backhand dinks with this paddle is crazy. Easily my favorite shot to hit with this paddle. I feel like I had so much control with both my hands easily fitting on the grip. I could really feel myself coming over the ball when hitting this shot. But hitting one-handed backhand dinks with this is also great. The added length of the ½ inch makes a much bigger difference than I was anticipating. I was able to reach a lot more balls out of the air while dinking, taking time away from my opponents. The added length was awesome when it came to hitting any kind of rolls or flicks. You're just able to make contact farther out in front of you, which allows more angles to open up that aren't there with a traditional paddle. But the issue I have with this paddle is the lack of pop and power. All the power you get from this paddle is 100% created from your own stroke and your own strength. I really didn't feel the paddle helping me in any way when hitting drives or serves. The extra leverage you get from this paddle is the only reason why you can get away with hitting any kind of powerful shot. Hitting drives on the forehand and backhand side both felt great, but I really had to focus on correct technique as far as using my body weight to generate the pace of the shot. Because of the extra length, ground strokes felt extra whippy, which definitely helped with my spin numbers. My two-handed backhand drive felt super solid. I had tons of control with it, but like I said, to generate any kind of pace, I felt like I had to throw my entire body into the shot, and that gets tiring quickly. If I were to play singles with this paddle, I would definitely add some lead tape to the top of the paddle to give it some more of that plow through. That would make a huge difference in the ground strokes for sure. But sadly, the extra length doesn't help with the pop in any way really. When I got into hands battles, the lack of pop was apparent. I was constantly reminded that the ball will only go as fast as I swing the paddle. Another thing was that the extra length made it somewhat harder to maneuver in those hands battles and found myself getting jammed up more than I'm used to. but that's just one of the drawbacks of having a longer handle. The last thing I wanted to talk about is kind of nitpicky, but the stock grip that this paddle came with was probably the worst overgrip I've ever felt on any paddle or tennis racket ever. It feels like there's a super slippery piece of plastic over it. I thought I could peel it away like every other grip, but that's just how it is. I've never put a different grip over my paddle so fast in my life. I have no idea why they chose that one to be shipped on this paddle. To be honest, I think this is a really awesome paddle for people who are coming from tennis learning to play pickleball. It forces you to slow the game down and to dial back your ground strokes, which is great because every person that transitions from tennis to pickleball is a banger for at least the first couple of months. But for the average person, a 6.5-inch handle is probably overkill. I have very large hands and I have room to spare. The perfect grip length for me is 5.5 to 6 inches. Unless you play in the NBA, I really don't think you need a 6.5-inch handle. But don't get me wrong, playing with this paddle is tons of fun, especially ripping those two-handed backhand dinks. With this paddle coming in at $200, there are a bunch of paddles that are cheaper than this one that are top tier paddles. I feel like in order to justify the extra money spent, you really need to think if the extra length of this paddle is what you're looking for. I really do think this would be an amazing option for anyone trying to get a really firm grasp of the two-handed backhand stroke. There isn't a better paddle to help you feel more comfortable when hitting the shot. So would I recommend this paddle? Yes. If you are a tennis player transitioning to pickleball, or if you're the person that likes nice control paddle with an extra long handle and wants to be more aggressive with taking dinks out of the air. If you are one of those people and would like to pick one of these up, make sure to use discount code BRIONESPB at checkout to save yourself some money. This helps us out financially, which allows us to continue to make better and better videos for you guys. Humongous thank you for all of you that stayed to the end, and I will catch you guys on the next review. Peace.